So before I introduce who our spotlight is, I'll just introduce our team. I'm Christy Drake, and we have Melanie with us, and I think Haley's on the line. And then with AIA tonight, we have MJ, right? Your camera's not on, so.
Yes, Christy, sorry, that's me, MJ with AIA San Diego.
Great.
Yes.
Great. So we are all here for this tonight, and this event will be one continuing education unit. And so if you didn't catch in the chat, MJ left her email address in there, so please email your AIA number to her so then you can get your credit. So without further ado, our spotlight is OJK Architecture. It's a woman-owned virtual architecture practice. And a little bit about who they are and why we have selected them as our first spotlight. So I actually have the privilege of working with OJK. Just started working here a few months ago, and so I've had a front row seat to witness just how amazing these three women have been able to come together and create this amazing company that it's just everything that if I had my own company, this is how I would do it. And so it's just like something that I've been looking for so long, and it's been really hard to find. And so when I finally did find it, you know, I want to be able to share it. So beyond being proud of being able and honored to be working with them, I think it's really important that this movement is shared, and especially because they're up in it's hard right now, up in like the Bay Area. And so bringing it down to San Diego and kind of like putting it in the water down here, getting these ideas out, it's just really important to keep the architecture industry vibrant and alive, and kind of up with the times. And so these three women, Sarah, Leah, and Kate, SLK, which they'll introduce themselves in a bit, but they teamed up to acquire a 40-year-old company that focuses mainly on multifamily residential to make an impact on the housing crisis, and revamping, rebranding, kind of recreating this company 100% virtual so everybody can work from home, living their best lives. And that happened before COVID. So that was intentionally virtual, not kind of like having to do it that way. And so there's a big difference that they'll talk about in like why that is, or how that works intentionally, as opposed to having to have done it. And so they're just pushing to break the social and the corporate norms of a Monday through Friday, 9-to-5 desk job. More reasons why they were selected is because they have very inspiring mission and values. They have a healthy culture and energetic team, and their leadership style stands out to be modeled after, which is already kind of what I talked to. So I think that's enough hearing from me. So let me pass the mic over to the OJK team.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and introduce us because I'm the blabbermouth of the three. We are, yeah, so as Christy so eloquently said, the three of us acquired a 40-year-old architecture firm in February 2021. So we were a brand new leadership of this practice. Sarah already worked for our founder, Jerry King. OJK actually stands for the Office of Jerome King. So we have the benefit of a 40-year legacy of healthy, sustainable, beautiful projects all over the South Bay, Monterey County, Santa Cruz County. And we really have taken that responsibility quite seriously in terms of you know, making sure we continue the legacy of that practice. And in a way, it's been such an enormous benefit for us because all three of us are doing architecture because we have kind of a heart-driven, mission-driven mindset in terms of doing the most good at any given time. And I think Sarah and I, at least, were intimidated by starting our own practice because we really didn't want to stop that momentum of the good work we were doing to start from scratch. Leah, of course, is the renegade and had her own firm before we started. But so there was this beautiful opportunity as Jerry was retiring for us to take over the firm and continue the good work he was doing. Day one, I had 3 projects that were actively in construction. We had projects that are actively in design. So it was a wonderful way to kind of have a launch pad for the 3 of us to continue that work rather than, you know, taking whatever commissions we could get and designing somebody's backyard deck. You know, we could get right into continuing to work on giant, you know, 135 unit, 9-story buildings that house tons of people. A little bit about the 3 of us, if you want to go to the next slide. I think maybe the 3 of us will just introduce ourselves briefly. So Sarah, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I am a Cal Poly San Luis Obispo grad of, gosh, what, 2009. That's what year we graduated. Kate and I have known each other since day one in the dorms at Cal Poly, so a long history of friendship, as well as just collaborating together in the professional world after college at another firm. The bulk of my experience has been in the public education realm, working on learning spaces and a lot of tangential learning spaces, children's museum and library, a very technical central commissary for a school district. So kind of a wide spectrum of project types within and related to the learning and education field. It was a great foundation for my career to just partner with public entities like school districts, learn how to partner with private entities, also supporting some of the missions of these projects. And really, I think a couple of years ago, I was looking for a change to really focus on, as Kate said, doing the most good with my practice as an architect, using my passion and expertise in architecture to create purposeful spaces that improve lives and affect positive social change in our communities. That's the hope and goal of my career. And so moving over to OJK, working on predominantly multifamily affordable housing for those who need a home in our area was a great opportunity, next step, and it blossomed into an opportunity I never could have dreamed of joining with Kate and Leah on this exciting journey.
I'll go next to stay true to our appropriate order. Okay. Yes. So I am Leah Bayer, and I'm also a Cal Poly grad. You'll find a theme there. I studied architectural engineering and art first, and then moved into architecture. I'm the president of OJK, and I've been practicing architecture for nearly 10 years now, and business management for a little over 15. My architecture focus has really almost exclusively been on housing of all different scales, and I'm licensed in California and Washington and sometimes Hawaii. My interest as it relates to practicing architecture is really in storytelling, but my day-to-day passion as a firm leader is in business management. I love making sure that we have the most exceptional, happy architects with the right tools and the right support to best serve our clients and our community's needs. I also really love volunteering and sharing resources and knowledge to better our profession, particularly strengthening diversity and equity in the industry. So thank you for allowing us the opportunity to do that here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Kate Conley. I would say I'm the technician of the trifecta. I started working in the Bay Area with Sarah, actually, at a firm in Palo Alto, and then changed to work for Foster and Partners on their Apple Stores retail team for 3.5 years, which was an incredible experience and really kind of honed my technical design skills and designing everything literally down to the last millimeter, which is an experience that you really can't walk yourself back from. And then moved on to LPA in San Jose who also has an office in San Diego, an excellent firm. And there, I really got a peek into more kind of the business financial practice management side of architecture, which was additionally an invaluable experience. Although I highly recommend having a Leah if you decide to start your own architecture firm. My passion has really come from, of course, a deeply sustainable focus going through Cal Poly in the early 2000s. You kind of couldn't graduate without that ethos. And partnering really well with our builders to making sure that the end product is what we designed, and kind of finding creative solutions, you know, boots on the ground, on site, working with our builders every day to make sure that we're executing the vision that we had at the beginning. So I couldn't be happier to be partnered with these other two ladies. I think we have such complementary skill sets. That's why we jokingly call ourselves the trifectas, because none of us step on each other's toes. We all have completely different interest areas, completely different complementary personalities and skill sets. And it's really been that balance that I think Sarah will go into more about, like what has made this such a success.
Yeah, if we skip over to the next slide, it's kind of a good graphic for that concept. So as Kate introduced earlier, I started practicing with Jerry King a couple of years ago. Jerry he had an amazing practice, amazing legacy of investing in the architecture community, very involved in the AAA chapter up here. And just a heart for partnering with our nonprofit housing developer clients, built some really strong, loyal relationships there. And a talent for weaving really beautiful design into projects that historically have not benefited from high quality design. And so that was my big draw to move over and work with him. After a couple months, the pandemic hit, and that was a big shift for a firm that was not intended to operate in a virtual setting. And so at that point in time, we knew we needed help, and actually got introduced to Leah through another teammate on our team. And Leah well, she'll speak to this later, I'm sure, but Leah already had her own practice, an all virtual firm. And she actually, in that collaborative spirit she just mentioned, helped OJK transition into a more effective virtual practice, building out a lot of our software and communication tool sets as a consultant team member, and also integrating into some of our projects at the time. Throughout that experience, it planted a pretty strong seed that this is somebody that I would love to work with. And if I were to do something like acquire a firm, I would want her on our team. And Kate quickly got wind of that. This is all with the backstory of Jerry looking toward retirement at the time. And so I just feel like there was something bigger at work, bringing the three of us together to carry on this legacy for Jerry, and transform it into its next chapter. And that's what we're really excited to talk to you all about today. But this diagram just shows you some of our early workings of who the three of us are, what our strengths and skill sets are, how that would translate into roles and responsibilities on our team. It was just a really fun mind mapping experience to see how complementary our experiences.
Should we buy a company together? Yes, probably so.
Let's give it a whirl.
Awesome. I'm just gonna vouch for the balance of the three of them. It's a beautiful thing. So we have some questions that we prepared for the three of you. And so what we'll do is we'll ask the question, we'll give you some time to answer it, and then afterwards, if anyone has some follow-up questions, or if we want to have a discussion about anything regarding this question, please feel free to turn your mic on and chime in. So here's the first question. Why is the lattice structure important to you? Why should it be important for others? And what kind of leadership style do you have to make this work?
Yeah, so I love this question. The ladder versus lattice thing really came about for me when we started to really transform the level of equity, diversity, and inclusion that we were discussing at LPA before OJK was ever you know, a twinkle in my eye. And this came directly from the AIA Guides to Equitable Practice, which is a resource that I think everyone on this call should know about. These are like AIA sanctioned like playbooks for how to make your firm more equitable, more inclusive, more just, more diverse, and kind of the do's and don'ts that are like AIA's recommendations based on deep, deep research and collaboration with the University of Washington. So I cannot recommend this resource highly enough. Just literally Google AIA Guides to Equitable Practice and they'll pop right up for you. And in the 7th guidebook, I think there are 9 total, there was this idea of the ladder versus the lattice, and it completely caught fire for me because, you know, there's 2 great reasons to have this kind of lattice structure of how someone moves through their career. I'm going to say 3 great reasons. The first reason, of course, is that as a young architect, you don't know exactly what your interest is yet. So it's so nice to be able to have the ability to kind of diverge and converge from this path that you thought you were going down once you find out building science is a thing. Oh, and that's super interesting. Or inclusive design is a thing. That's super interesting. Resiliency is a thing. That's super interesting. So you need the flexibility to be able to explore those tangential paths without feeling like you're hampering your career development. The second thing, of course, is work-life balance, which I think this chart demonstrates very beautifully, is like time spent on work and time spent on your life ebb and flow as your life changes. You know, you might become a parent, you might become a caregiver for an elderly family member, you might start a side hustle. There are a million reasons why you might want to recede from work a bit at any point in your career. And the career structure of your firm should have the flexibility for you to do that and recede a bit without penalizing you. And lastly, of course, you know, if you don't provide a lattice for that level of experimentation and exploration in your career, your employees are just going to hack it themselves. And they're going to do that by changing firms. So we try to provide that flexibility for someone to explore those different facets of their career without feeling like they need to leave OJK to do so. Because I think we've all probably done that. We've all made a career move because we feel like we're just not getting the experience that we know we could get at this other practice that they're offering us. So we move instead of staying loyal and staying in the place where we are because we feel like we're kind of tied into the role and tied into this very linear ladder-like path that we're on at that practice. I'm a person who's done that multiple times, so I can't really fault others for doing it. It's the way that our kind of industry is structured. And so what we're trying to change about that industry is giving people the ability to do that within OJK and not feel like they need to leave our practice in order to have that level of freedom. Next one, yeah. So this is our firm structure.
I love this. So you know, when we've had to bring people on and hire a new staff and we're trying to figure out like salary and titles and looking at typical structures and arguing over what the titles are that we should use for a small firm, Kate's like, no, one title. Like you're an architect or a designer if you're not licensed. That's it. Everyone's the same, which I think is just so beautiful.
I would give everyone one title if we were allowed to, because I think everyone's an architect and everyone's a designer. But yeah, this was like this flat democratic. You don't get downgraded if you're not filling a certain role on a project, because this is the role that you have in our firm. You are just one of us. That's all you have to be, is just one of us. And so if you go to the next slide, we did realize, of course, that although you have a very democratic title in a firm, we do need a structure to be able to run a project. So we kind of came up with this matrix you see on the left here, which is like our project team. But you can see, and this is my actual career path that's plotted in the purple dashed line. You can see that people can come and go and recede and go back into a different role and backtrack and move laterally and eventually make it to the top, whatever their definition of success is, but take a very non-linear path to get there. And it's having that not feel like a downgrade or a failure that's essential to our practice and essential to the way that this works. So one thing that we, you know, kind of as we were brainstorming how our practice was going to work, and this evolved very organically, this is not something we had in mind, you know, day one, February 1st, 2021, is when people are at this mid-level to really encourage and incentivize them to explore, which we'll get into a little bit later. But at a basic level, everyone in our practice is expected at some point to declare a specialty, and it's a research specialty. And we give them actual dedicated time to research their research specialty every week. Christy can attest. You get like 4 to 8 hours a week, depending on like how heavy the workload is, to research your specialty and actually become an expertise in that subject matter. And in the yellow hexagons here, those are actual all specialties from our firm. So we, of course, feel like this is a very beneficial practice to our firm, because all of this knowledge circles back to us in a very kind of collaborative, informative way, because all of our staff has sort of equal access to our communication tools to communicate with each other. And it also just makes all of us have a point person for research. So if we see a really cool article about universal design, we put it in that channel, and the person whose specialty that is goes and digs into it further. So it's a way of sort of like mutually gathering knowledge at our firm without each person feeling overwhelmed and like they need to be an expert in all of this. And then that specialty, as they become more and more poised as an expert in it, can start to inform maybe where they want to go along their career path. But it's really the freedom of that exploration allowed at that kind of mid-career level to give that breath to that process of exploration. And what we found is that even our youngest designers at our firm are intensely dedicated to their specialty. So I would even like stretch that rectangle down all the way to the bottom, all the way down to intern. They lead crits all the time. They lead discussions all the time. They knowledge share all the time. So really everyone in our firm kind of has a specialty, even though it was originally envisioned as this way to sort of like explore once you have a few years under your belt.
Yeah, just to chime in, I think what's been really fun about the yellow side of this diagram is the conversations we've gotten to have with our new team members about what their interests are, where their passions lie, and exploring those ideas with them, exploring how they overlay with what our firm needs in terms of specialties and expertise and where we're headed in our practice. And just the spark that comes out of our team members once we found kind of the thing that we need and that they love, and then seeing them pour into learning about those things, reporting back to our broader internal team about those things, layering those things into our projects and into our client and community interactions. It's a really invigorating way to collaborate and really empower everybody in the firm to contribute. And I think it helps with this idea of a more simplified structure, and that everybody has value in their own special way and their own specialty that they're pouring into the team. Even if you're not, a master detailer at your role or expertise level, or just don't like doing that, you can provide extreme value by pouring in your knowledge and expertise in one of these specialty areas. So it really allows for us to have a very diverse group of skill sets and team members that all feel valued and empowered.
Layering on to that concept of everyone being valuable, we sort of took this into the operational business standpoint and sort of studied how we might overhaul our compensation strategy as a result of this new structure, where we don't have these sort of firm title level roles, and recognize that everyone is sort of at an equal, relatively equal level, and then have their own skills and strengths and specialties. So we recently workshop with the team, and everyone's gung-ho about it, so we'll be implementing next year, but essentially the concept of just 3 very narrow banded salaries for our company. They're all based off of AIA firm compensation report for national averages. So they're saying that we value all of you relative to really like a mid-level professional in our company equally. And then as a team, we are going to divvy up and split up profits that the company realizes throughout the year based off of your performance and your own sort of declared expertise, your own deliverables, your own communication, your own contributions to firm development and firm culture. So it's really sort of looking at, like, again, just creating this flat baseline we're all equal, we're all valuable, but we all have our individual strengths and our individual paths that we want to pursue. And how do we support both of those at the same time in sort of every possible way as a company?
Fantastic. I thank you so much for your answer to this lattice structure importance. It is really important to the industry in general, and I think the way that you've implemented it into the company structure is just really truly successful. Speaking firsthand. So now we have some time for anyone else to kind of chime in, ask some follow-up questions, or if you want to input anything, any ideas to this lattice structure, please go ahead and unmute and share your thoughts. Not all at once, guys.
I will go. This is Matilda Bjork with hi. So I'm not on camera because in true fashion, I'm taking care of children while listening to this.
Love it.
So I am one of the owners or partners and principals at OJK Architects, and we're well represented here today. So that's wonderful. I'm loving seeing that. And I was also chair and co-chair of WIA here before exiting in 2020. So I guess one of my questions, I would have multiple questions if I could sit down with you guys, but one of my big questions is, I think, you know, in our firm, I think this happens, a lot of what you've been talking about, but it's more behind the scenes and it's not something that's super transparent. I think, you know, there's two older owners, two younger female, and those are male, and then two younger female owners. And we have a lot of these conversations that you're talking about in structuring and, you know, should we have job titles? Shouldn't we have job titles? All of that kind of stuff, and making things equal and making sure bonuses and things like that are, you know, equitable. But it's not, I can't say that, I'm going to guess for the employees that it's not super transparent like this that you're showing. So when you bring people on, or, you know, how do you kind of engage the staff from that? Or is it really just from the day one, this is how you present yourselves? So I guess just, you know, how you communicate what you do with your employees would be, I'm curious on that.
We're pretty radically transparent, I'll say. We do start that from day one with our culture, and we're pretty upfront about as much as a new hire is curious about, we're happy to talk through that. I think also we tend to carry our team through these decisions. So, you know, we're new leaders, and we're making this up as we go. So it's not like we've got it figured out. And doing it on the fly. No, but I mean, we have those conversations as owners and think about, like, should we do this? Shouldn't we do this? And when we make sort of an executive decision to move forward with a concept, we'll bring our team into it. We do a lot of sort of team workshops and crits, not just from the design standpoint, but also from the standpoint of, you know, these specialties, culture, operations, finances. Everything gets thrown into a Miro board to get people's opinions on what we should be doing. So it helps get buy-in, and it also helps us understand whether or not we're on the right track. I think another component, which I'm going to touch on later, is that we have a lot of sort of one-on-one conversations. I sit with our team members every 2 weeks, talk to them about anything they have questions about, share with them what we're working on, ask for feedback on what we're doing so that we can improve. Yeah, I think there's multiple different layers of how we treat this transparently, but that is a decision that we make from day one with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, our team literally just workshopped their own bonus compensation structure. Like, they came up with it. And
the metric to calibrate against. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just want to vouch really quick for the radical transparency. It is unlike anything I've experienced and everything that I've always wanted. So it's beautiful.
It's real.
It's real. From day one.
And I think we'll touch on this more later, but being intentionally of all virtual practice, it relies on a pretty robust layer of transparency because we aren't sitting in the same room together. We need to be extra clear in our communication and our expectations, and it draws certain types of employees to want to join our team that we're finding. And so just the transparency from our side and the trust on their side, they all kind of go in hand in hand to make a virtual practice like ours work.
Great point.
I'm curious how many people you have in your firm and what some of the tools are that you use because you are solely a virtual firm. I feel like I'm unaware, like you just said Miro board and I Googled it. I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't know that existed.
That's a perfect segue into our next
Yeah,
section.
yeah, we can jump into the next section.
Oh, awesome. Okay, go for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Yeah, actually that is perfect. So, and that's kind of how we set it up. So it's perfect. Thank you. So what are the benefits of having a fully virtual architectural company? What are some of the challenges? Describe your company culture and how you're able to achieve it, specifically being virtual.
So before we get into all of the sort of platforms and how we manage that, since I had some dental work done today, I'm going to lean on a video that we just had produced by Autodesk to share a little bit about the benefits of a virtual practice and our culture. And then after the video, we can jump back in with some more detail. So that, I don't know if you can click the link from presentation mode, but the text is a link.
Okay, you're right. Hang on.
You might have to reshare a new.
Yeah, one sec.
In the meantime, Elizabeth, we're 11 teams strong now.
Yeah.
So not small, but not big. And that definitely is an intentional factor of this model. And yeah, we'll talk about that more later, but that's the size we are today.
Thanks.
It's worth the wait, you guys. It's real cute.
Can you see this? Because I shared my whole screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I don't think it's playing the audio though.
Yeah, there's no audio.
Is there like a toggle to do presentation audio?
Sorry, there's not, the volume is not good.
No, there's no audio from the video.
Oh, there's no audio. Okay, hang on.
It's very flattering freeze. Thank you.
I think at the top you can like turn off presentation audio, and I think that'll do the video audio.
Mm-hmm.
If not, we'll figure it out for later.
Yeah.
And I have lost now where to find you guys. Oh, here we go. Any hints on how I could change the audio?
When I presented yesterday, it had a toggle at the top that said presentation audio or not. So if you don't have that, I don't know.
Should we maybe talk about what the video is and what it talks about in the meantime?
Yep, we can just walk through it. So in the video, you would have seen team members feeding turkeys and swimming with kids in the pool and playing video games together and rock climbing. One of the benefits of a virtual practice, of course, is, and I think a flexible virtual practice, is you are sort of in control of your own schedule. And there's a lot more time for and daylight for spending time on life and the people and things that really matter to you. That sort of shift in focus back to the point of our lives, I think has been really important. So Sarah and Kate both mentioned that I had started a practice prior to joining OJK. So in 2018, I started my own company intentionally as a virtual practice, actually inspired by our local Women in Architecture Committee, and hearing over and over again the challenges that new mothers or people caring for a family member, or just people who want to have a really robust life, were having with the culture of architecture as it was. And in particular in the Bay Area, with the commutes the way that they are, I mean, our workday is 12 hours plus there, and it just really doesn't leave time for anything else. And the advancements were quite a bit of a challenge. And then people who wanted to leave the Bay Area also didn't have opportunity to maintain their position. So as somebody who is of age, ready to start a family, and did not want to do that in the Bay Area, I think I selfishly was like, well, we can do this virtually. And then I can set my own schedule and go where I want to go. Ended up hiring my first hire, Victoria, who's actually on this screen here and featured in the video, as my first virtual hire. And she was traveling across the country in a van and worked for me from a different state. Really, anytime that I checked in with her, she was somewhere else, and it was seamless. So that test grew that company up to 5 people from all across the country. And then we met OJK and partnered with Sarah and Kate and expanded again to 11, and we're still all over the place now with someone in France, actually. And it really gives people that freedom to sort of move around and enjoy their lives. And so it's a huge benefit, as we've all seen, I think, in the pandemic. That opportunity to spend more time at home with others is great. But I think from the firm owner standpoint, it's awesome for us because it doesn't limit our pool of potential hires to where we're based. We have the entire world available to us. You know, the most qualified, most talented, and also really very diverse pool of applicants, which is awesome. I think it also provides a lot more equity for people who are looking for employment that don't necessarily have great options nearby. So there's a lot as it relates to equity and diversity in practice, flexibility. Nope.
Yeah.
I think I got it now.
Ooh, let's see.
Give it a try. I'll let you finish talking.
Started to layer onto that, the component of our practice, and we'll talk about this in more detail, is being all virtual. We have tools set up to allow for asynchronous work relationships. And so that's really the key to having a flexible work environment. It's not just about not having to go to the office, but it's also about being able to push your hours to the evening if you're caring for a sick child during the day. That was my story this week. And just, you know, if you need to go run an errand, you can just, you know, work a little more on the weekend. So just having the flexibility in our work flow allows people to really choose the best, most fullest life experience that they're looking for.
All right, let's test this. Hear it?
What I love about architecture and being
Yes?
Yes.
Woo!
Okay. I'm gonna mute.
involved in architecture is it allows us to really improve the lives of others. And so that's what we do with architecture, and that's what I do in my position in the business. I try to support the lives of our team so that they can in turn support and enhance the lives of others through architecture.
We're a fully virtual women-led office, and we do primarily multifamily affordable housing. It's such a wonderful experience working with people across the country with different experiences, different backgrounds, each with their own perspective on how we tackle the affordable housing crisis.
I would say our mission is to creatively, purposefully attack the housing crisis from different angles. That main point of attack is multifamily affordable housing, providing new housing, dense housing for low-income families.
It's great to see something being done to improve the human condition for so many people out there. Affordable housing is a great thing. I'm glad that I'm involved in it, that I feel that I'm doing something to better the planet, the world.
What I'm really interested about is how can we creatively allow homeownership within those shared properties to allow people that are moving out of our multifamily affordable housing units in buying a portion of a home and building equity and then continuing on toward full-time homeownership. So just creating housing of all different levels.
Our technology needs to support many different skills. Architects and designers need to be able to produce beautiful renderings and drawings. We also need to run energy models and just do really data-heavy things. For our team, the cloud is extremely important. We want to make sure that we can collaborate and that everyone on the team has access to all of our files at all times.
I mean, we started remote, so technology was the basis and backbone of our business. It's not the point of our business. It is the thing that allows us to do what we do well. And so having the right platforms in place allows us to do better architecture. It also frees us up to be a little bit more creative. Technology will always change. It'll never be constant. For us, that's exciting because the more technology evolves, the better we can do our jobs.
During my career, I've found it interesting in that most women leave the office at a certain point in time to have children. And it really messes with their career in that they come in, they get that introduction to the business, and then they're gone. This remote thing, this virtual world allows a woman to stay home, be with her child.
I have worked with some amazing female colleagues, and they are powerhouses. They are extremely efficient. They are confident in what they do. They have priorities outside of work, and so it forces an intentionality in the time that they are at the office.
My husband and I are avid rock climbers, and when we were in New York, we wanted to travel, and we wanted to be able to see different climbing areas and be able to chase good climbing weather. So 3 years ago was really when I first thought about working remotely, and I haven't regretted it since.
I will work at night. I'll have dinner and then I'll plunk down and finish off whatever's left of my 8-hour day. Weekends I will work if I need to, if I have a deadline. So that flexibility is great in that it allows you to do whatever you want.
I don't think I ever did imagine working fully from home. At times it feels like I'm breaking the rules a little bit, like, oh, I can just hang out and do everything here. But it's really empowering. It's really allowing me to live the life that I really want to live.
I love my work and I love my teammates and my company, but I think there's also a lot to be said for everything else in life. And I think I'm better at what I do at work because I have other things that I do outside of work.
Life is short, nothing is guaranteed. You don't know if you have tomorrow. And I think that's been on a lot of people's minds lately with everything that's been going on, is that we really need to make sure that we're living every day to the fullest extent possible.
Home is a component of healing and re-entering society in a positive, productive way, but it's also the place that forms and the community that forms that helps create that restorative process.
Awesome.
Much better than to show
Yeah.
the visuals of what we're talking about than to just talk about it. Thanks for sharing the video.
Yeah.
So I think the next slide shows our team with the question of how many of us are there. We've grown pretty quickly, actually, in the past like 8 months from where we started to now, and started sort of cooling it for a little bit, I think. From a business management standpoint, there are some practical benefits to the virtual practice. Not having an office is a pretty big financial implication as well. We have a pretty low overhead. Actually, our KPIs are sort of all out of whack because they're so different than typical expenses an architecture firm otherwise has. Which gives us an opportunity to really invest more in our people and our tools and our future. There's a bit more resiliency in the virtual firm practice model. COVID hit, we were fine, for example, although hopefully the internet doesn't go out, but I think all of us will have different problems if that happens in the world. So maybe we can jump to challenges.
Yeah.
The next slide. What's interesting is before COVID, there were a lot more questions about virtual practice and how it works and what the challenges are. I think now that people were forced into virtual work without the intention behind it, without setting up the systems and the culture behind it, we're hearing a lot of what about isms about continuing in a fully virtual mode. So what about those spontaneous overhead learning opportunities that you have in the office? And what about teaching and mentorship? How do you do that virtually? What about water cooler conversations that happen naturally as you walk around the office? How do you do construction administration? What about sketching together? You know, how do you do that in virtual world? And what about knowing your local community if you're spread all over the place? So I think to touch on some of these, spontaneous overhead and learning. Let's see, do we have a Slack? So we'll get into some of our tools. The first one is Slack. We use Slack basically as the foundation of our nonstop communication with one another. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's essentially like an instant messaging type platform. It has all different types of channels. We have a channel for every project. We've got channels for sort of operations and finances and business development and pipeline. And then we have a whole slew of channels and research and fun things for the team. And so rather than depending on being in the right place at the right time, you literally have access to every conversation that's happening in the office at any point in time, and you can read it when you're available.
And it's searchable.
Yeah, it's searchable. You can participate in the conversation after it's happened. You can continue the conversation. So there's actually a much more rich and robust world available to people that don't happen to overhear a particular conversation next to them a certain period of time. Lisa's asking, what is this program? This is Slack. Yeah.
My favorite line to use on something that's not my project or not my business, I say, I'm creeping in over here.
There is a creeper.
Guilty also.
Really good for the not having to fear missing out on something.
As a leader too, it sort of shows us where some of our team members might be challenging and asking a lot of questions that'll help us know what we might need to provide more training in. It also shows us when people are doing a really great job that might not be visible to you if you don't work with somebody on a day-to-day basis. And so we're able to express appreciation and thanks to our team members for what they do because we can see it. So, teaching and mentorship. Kate, you want to jump in on?
Yeah, let's do it. So that was actually my biggest fear joining a virtual firm, was like, how do you teach people how to draw? How do you teach people how to do code research? How do you teach people how to do planning research? And because we have such intentional gatherings when we just create presentations for each other and share that knowledge. We have kind of a wish list of educational topics that people can just add to at any time in one of our other tools, which we'll get to in a second. And if there's kind of enough interest surrounding one topic, we'll just create a presentation for that, and we'll issue it to everyone in the team meeting that we have every Tuesday. So everyone gets the same information at the time. Whereas in other practices I've been at, yes, you may have a very rich conversation about how to do a task with one employee leaning over their shoulder, looking at their monitor together. But then you have to go have that conversation 6 more times as each person gets to it, rather than making it a very intentional, well thought out presentation of the information. And so for me, that's been a detailing seminar. That's been a construction administration lessons learned seminar. That's been a new housing legislation seminar. We realize that teaching and learning can be a little bit more formal and therefore become a resource for people to look back to rather than just like a spontaneous conversation. So, for us, it's like, rather than saying, but what about spontaneous interactions? It's like, but what about not spontaneous interactions that you can then go like refer to when you need that information a year from now? So my fears have been completely put to rest. Just seeing that in practice at our firm about mentorship and teaching in particular.
I think if you go to the next slide, I believe is Monday, and that's the tool that Kate was talking about. Monday is, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's a very robust database. We use it for project management. We also use it for practice management. I use it to manage my invoicing process. We use it to manage our education schedules. We keep record of all of the conversations we have as partners, and we jot down sort of agenda items throughout the week that we want to talk about each other within here. It carries a lot. It's organized, it's visible, it's very clear who's working on what. So rather than spending an hour or two every week talking about work that we've completed that nobody really cares about on all of our projects, you can note that here. And instead we focus on lessons learned, knowledge sharing, that sort of thing. So it's taking that sort of face-to-face synchronous time and reprioritizing what we're doing with that, using the tools to leverage just things like checking in and stuff that can be reported out on that doesn't have to happen in person, and using that group in-person time for much more robust interactions for learning and growing and sharing together. Yeah, this is Monday.com. Another competitor is ClickUp. They're very similar, sort of like Asana, but I think much more powerful. All great practice management, project management platforms.
And really just beautifully asynchronous. You know, we don't have to have a team meeting where we're assigning tasks. We put it all in here. And the team meeting is for questions on those tasks, not for assigning the tasks and having everyone take their independent notes and maybe having an incomplete understanding of what their duties are. It's like, here's this, it's assigned to you. Here's the deadline. Here's where you set the status of whether you need input, or it's done, or you're working on it, or you're waiting for a response. It's incredible.
I can jump in on the but what about water cooler conversations one. That's been a fun one to see unfold on our team. We are tackling that kind of concept, that get to know you as human being conversations in a couple different ways. Whenever we have a team meeting, we start with a prompt that just gives us insight into who each of us are, and they're fun. Today was at our design crit, you had to have your favorite chocolate candy as your background because today's National Chocolate Day. And so just fun things like that that let us build community and know each other better. I'm working with a coach right now, and she was prompting me to engage with my team on what is everybody's superpowers as a way to kind of build each other up, acknowledge the unique and the strengths we see in others. And so we put a prompt up on Slack. It turned into probably 100+ entry thread where we went team member by team member talking about what we see as their superpower, as just a way to really intentionally build each other up and acknowledge the strengths we see in each other. So I think we're taking water cooler conversations to the next step up.
Yeah. We've got Funbasters assigned on our team. We have a little bot in Slack that'll ask us random questions. I mean, you can infuse fun anywhere.
I think one of our Funbasters is actually on the call right now.
Oh, yeah. Alex is responsible for the chocolate prompt, I think. Thanks for that. Super hungry now.
Been eating chocolate all day. Thank you very much.
Kate, I think, do you want to take construction administration? Because that's sort of something that's an evolving conversation for us too.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm happy to. So yeah, I'll be quick. We have a Slack channel for construction where we actually just post the weekly reports from all of our general contractors on the projects that are under construction. And I am continually amazed at the number of questions I get that are like, what is that thing? We're designing a trash chute right now. What is that thing in front of the trash chute? And we like do research and we figure out like, oh, it's the sanitation system. And so just people being able to physically see the photos of the things that they're drawing, even though they're not out on site, has been an incredible kind of feedback loop experience. And then again, it's a conversation that's in Slack that's searchable. So the next time someone's designing a trash chute, they can go back and find that conversation and know how much space they're supposed to plan in the shaft for X, Y, and Z. So I have so far been the person who has gone out and done construction administration. But, you know, we're definitely, this is kind of one of our evolving pieces, is like, how do we create kind of an infrastructure for our team to be able to come do that too, so that people who aren't necessarily based in the Bay Area can still have that really rich feedback experience of going out on site and seeing the way things are built and bringing that back to the way that they produce their construction documents moving forward. But of course, as we all know, a lot of construction administration is paperwork. And anyone in any part of the country can do that and still remain very involved in the construction process, even if they're in upstate New York, or even if they're in Alaska, and be part of that RFI submittal process as well. And hopefully we can, you know, reward them with trips out to the Bay Area for them to see our projects as a project they've been deeply involved in comes to that point where it'll be a fruitful visit for them.
The next one's maybe our favorite. What about sketching together and asking about the tool Miro?
Yes.
We've got a little visual. Miro is basically a pinup board or a whiteboard, but digitally. And we use it all the time. This is one thing that I love about what Kate and Sarah brought to the practice, was this idea of weekly crits on Thursdays. And every week we get together and we workshop something together. And one of our team members puts together the design problem and preps us with the background information and sort of sets up some options or some play areas and some sandbox areas of tools and references. And we all cut loose and pile on and collaborate and sketch and sticky and add pictures and emoji. I wonder, I don't know, this is Kate's project, but Sarah, either of you want to jump in on how this has been from a design standpoint?
Yeah, I can jump in. Kate and I worked at a firm together in Palo Alto that had this design crit weekly practice, and it was my favorite thing coming into the profession as a young designer, because on so many levels. One, having the whole team to come together every week to work on design, even if you're in the pits of CA or CDs, you get to lift your head up and think big picture, think design, do the fun part of our job. And two, our projects are so much better having people that are not in the trenches on them providing design input and guidance and asking questions and saying, that looks weird, let's try this. Our designs are just so much more rich with that layer of input from the whole team, kind of utilizing all of the ideas.
Including a guest crit. In this one, we actually invited a colleague of ours to participate who's not in our company, because we're like, oh, she's great with this type of architecture, let's bring her in. So
but yeah, I mean, you get 11 color schemes at once instead of the 3 that you can come up with in, you know, the 2 hours you have to work on it. It's so robust, so incredible.
So, I think it works virtually. I think it works in person. Just do design crits. They're really fun.
The nice thing about the virtual option is that you get to see and hear the thoughts and ideas of people who are perhaps not as extroverted or comfortable voicing their opinion or getting up in front of a group. They can quietly work on their own and sort of add their thoughts. And so there is sort of a layer of equity involved as well in this process, which we like. Yeah, Matilda.
I was just wondering, do you have people that don't, I think you just answered it actually, like if people don't want to speak up, they still have this mural platform that they can doodle on and work on silently? Because I was going to ask, like, how do you navigate the different personalities? You know, some people want to speak up, some people don't. And so how do you kind of get that group collaboration and don't have people kind of just sitting off on the sidelines? So maybe this virtual aspect actually helps with that, because, you know, it accommodates different types of personalities.
Yep, we've got people that like to talk a lot, and so they speak up. We have some people that like to stay muted and talk to themselves but type to us, which is really fun. And then we have just very quiet people that will like sneakily put their ideas, and then we have some team members that will come back to the boards. They need more time to think about it. They're not like an on the spot designer, but they are more thoughtful, and so they have their own process that they can return and layer into this. We also record these if we have team members who are missing, so that they can come back in. So yeah, I think it really does capture a lot of different diversity in how people operate and think and design all in one space.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Everybody's got a different brain.
Yep. The last one is, what about knowing our local community? And perhaps this maybe ties into sort of folding into our process of knowing our clients and knowing what we're doing. Sarah, you've got thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think that the challenge of what about knowing your community is one we're very much currently wrestling with and strategizing around, because our team lives all across the country, but all of our work is here in the San Francisco Bay Area. How do we all feel connected and know our communities in a way that allows us to be really good designers for the communities we're serving? And so to kind of step back from that, we'll talk about that a little bit more. The thing, I'd say the glue that makes a virtual practice culture, our virtual practice culture, really sing is that all of our team members are really focused on the why. We're very mission-driven, purpose-driven in the work that we do. And so just having that heart behind our practice pulls our community, our culture together in a way that all these other things are just added benefits on top of that, I'd say. Let's see, sorry, can we go to the next slide? Some of the key components of that are just trying to align ourselves with our clients as closely as possible. We strongly believe that as architects, we will help have the greatest impact with our work by aligning ourselves with the mission and vision and goals of our clients and the projects that they are trying to develop. In addition to that, aligning ourselves with the community and what the community needs for each specific project type, especially with something as personal as building homes for people. And so we're pouring ourselves into becoming into really robust community engagement processes. This is an example of one that Kate just recently took our team through in Palo Alto, where we did, I think, a series of 3 workshops working with the community to really outline the goals, the concerns, and those physically shaped the building massing that, and really unlocked what the design should be. All of those different ideas gave us really clear direction into what the right solution was for this site. And so that alignment with our community is a really key tenet to our work.
It's sort of almost like taking our design crits and taking it to the community, Kate.
Yeah. Exactly what I was going to say is we practice this super democratic, super everyone has a diverse point of view, and that is an asset, not a liability ethos that we have in our firm, and we practice throughout the week, but it shines most brightly in the design crits. And so these community workshops that we did just felt like that. Like, yeah, you're a neighbor who's not an architect, but you have a really strong opinion about the way this bike path that's next to the building works, and I need to hear that because I don't know that, but you do. And so recognizing that everyone's opinion is valid, everyone's contributions are valid, and really kind of walking the walk that we talk in our firm, outside of our firm as well, and bringing that to the communities that we work in, and really centering the residents and centering the neighbors and their points of view and their hyperlocal knowledge that we would never be able to glean otherwise.
I think that intentional inclusion is like important for anybody, because truly, how many of us are designing architecture that's on our block? Because neighborhoods and information and perspectives and viewpoints and culture changes from zone to zone. And so even when I was practicing in the Bay Area, I often felt in some cases like I didn't really have the authority to be designing a building for this community that I know nothing about. So being local doesn't mean you have to physically be there. I think it's more about that intention and dedication to understanding local communities and partnering with them.
Yeah, and on the flip flip side of that spectrum, we're trying to expand our services on the post-occupancy side of our work to know the residents that move into our housing developments, understand their personal stories, understand their perspectives, their lived experience, again, to help us know who we're designing for and inform our work on the next project. So those are two in-progress strategies on deeply and intentionally knowing the communities we're working with. Okay. The next slide is kind of a big news giveaway. You might have noticed in the video there was a different name underneath our introduction. So we are in the middle of a rebranding process that's going to go public on Monday. Obviously, we are deeply grateful and honored to be carrying on the legacy that Jerry King put into the firm, but the three of us are not Jerry King, and so we wanted to rebrand with a new name that reflects who we are, who our team, who we are as a team, and what we're creating together as we move the firm forward into this next chapter. And so these are a couple of mission statements that we've been generating. They've come very organically out of our conversations through our rebranding process, but really, again, coming back to for a meaningful alignment with our clients, with our community, for a really collaborative, open, transparent approach, for a restorative process. One, restorative in the work that we're doing, the projects, in the hopes that they will be a restorative place for the people they serve, but also restorative in the way we practice architecture. There's a lot of design and impact and responsibility in the practice of architecture, and taking that very seriously. And then for a resilient future, those are some of our statements. I think I'll hand it over to you, Leah, to fill out the rest on that end.
Yeah, I mean, we can go to the last question, which is, what are we doing next? Sort of preemptively skipping ahead.
Yeah, that does definitely bring us to the third question. What are your future plans for the growth of the company?
Yep. So immediate future, as Sarah said, we are rebranding. We will now be Architects Fora. So sort of taking that Fora concept for our new name and representing the entire team, which we are super excited about. So that's our immediate focus, is putting this together and rolling that out. And part of coming up with this new brand, we hosted a series of workshops with our team to understand, our strengths, our weaknesses, our whys, our competition, our future. And we had a little bit of a sort of 5-year, 10-year, 25-year, 50-year future that we're looking at together. So there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of room to dream, but we are sort of constantly looking at ways that we can be more flexible and collaborative, expanding our offerings to our clients. As Sarah said, sort of looking more into the community engagement process and the pre and post, continuing along that line. We are interested in doing development work. So we're starting to think about where we can fill in the gaps as we see. So we are serving our clients in affordable housing. But what does that sort of missing middle look like after affordable housing? There's a lot to do there too. So we're excited about that. Potentially some sort of nonprofit in the future, or a research branch that might shake out of one of these specialties. I think there's a lot of opportunity with what our team is doing. You see a lot of aliens in 50 years. I think our team thinks we'll be building housing on Mars in the future, but we're going to try and keep it to Earth.
We'll be retired by then. We don't care what they do.
I think too, we're spending a lot of time really introspectively understanding what success looks like to each of us as individuals and to us as a company. There's an idea of success that I had when I started my business. I think we had different ideas of success when we got together. And now that we have this team and we're seeing what we're doing and creating, that's changing a bit. And so perhaps there's this intention around staying as a smaller team and using these other opportunities to grow in a different way. Is bigger better? Like these are the questions that we're asking ourselves right now. and determining where we head next.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that really stuck out about, especially like the 10-25 year range for me, is like a lot of people said, you know, affordable housing, that term should be obsolete by then. All housing should be affordable. So kind of that really pivoted to us, even in our very current rebranding effort of like, what's our next? And are we about affordable housing, or are we about solving whatever the most kind of trenchant and important societal problems are occurring at any given time? And so that really helped us sort of get out of that, like, we're housing architects realm, although we love doing that, and really into like, okay, we care about this because affordable housing is a crisis that we are trying to tackle from every angle right now. There will be a next crisis, and we want to be poised and flexible and nimble enough to address that when it comes to the fore as well. That was kind of the most interesting piece about this exercise to me.
And also making sure that we set up a framework and maintain a framework where we're not the people responsible for this. Yes. Indefinitely. We are, as new leaders, very in tune with what it takes to transfer and hand off leadership. And so that's part of this too, is building a company that sort of passes on to the next generation and the next after that, and maintains this beautiful legacy that was started 40 years ago.
Oh, fantastic. Does anyone have any additional questions or comments that they want to add on to anything that we've talked about tonight?
And a reminder to email your AIA number to MJ.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, a huge thank you to Sarah, Leah, and Kate. You guys have definitely set the bar high for our kicking off our Ladder to Lattice series. And I appreciate you guys sharing your thoughts, ideas, and methods to making this work. And I hope everyone was able to take something away from this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I think we forgot to say it, but I just want to like make the disclaimer that a virtual practice is not necessarily for everyone. We started this to have a different option because it wasn't available, but we also think that there are a lot of takeaways in what we do that you could apply to in-person or virtual. It doesn't really matter. So hopefully you got something out of it, and thank you all for having us. This was so
yes, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.